Travis T. was feeling inspired. He suddenly felt the compulsion to write his first novel, despite minimal experience. In the winter of 2004, that's exactly what he did. Travis poured his heart and soul into this book because he knew the publishing company he intended to send the manuscript to, Publish America, only accepted works of a high quality. Quote, "Each day, an average of 78 new authors who are looking to find a book publishing company ask us to publish their book. We review not only the quality, but also the genre of their work. Like all serious book publishing companies, we have to be picky, as we can only accept the works that meet our requirements in both areas." Unquote. Eventually, Travis completed his grand task and sent the manuscript to Publish America. They promptly replied, stating that his novel, now entitled Atlanta Nights, had passed their high-quality threshold and was eligible for publication. Paired with this acknowledgement was a contract for Travis to ponder over the holidays. However, Travis never accepted the offer of his dreams. In fact, Atlanta Nights is considered one of the worst, and often singularly the worst, novel of all time. That leaves a handful of important questions. Why did Travis reject the offer? If the book was terrible, why did Publish America give Travis an offer in the first place? And most importantly, it can't be that bad. Can it? Travis T. never really existed. He was a pseudonym for a group of science fiction and fantasy authors. Authors within these two genres were well aware of the activity of Publish America, but not for good reason. The organization had made some particularly offensive statements regarding science fiction and fantasy writers, in a pair of articles published to the website authorsmarket.net. One of the articles, entitled "Never Trust the Experts," concludes with the passage, quote, "Science fiction and fantasy writers have it easier. It's unfair, but such is life. As a rule of thumb, the quality bar for sci-fi and fantasy is a lot lower than for all other fiction. Therefore, beware of published authors who are self-crowned writing experts. When they tell you what to do and not to do in getting your book published, always first ask them what genre they write. If it's sci-fi or fantasy, run. They have no clue about what it is to write real-life stories and how to find them at home. Unless you're a sci-fi or fantasy author yourself." End quote. The second, "Only trust your own eyes," gives more credit to writers within the two genres, but still states, quote, "But alas, the sci-fi and fantasy genres have also attracted some of the lesser gods. Writers who erroneously believe that sci-fi, because it is set in a distant future, does not require believable storylines, or that fantasy, because it is set in conditions that have never existed, does not need believable everyday characters. Obviously and fortunately, there are not too many of them, but the ones who are indeed not ashamed to be seen as literary parasites and plagiarists are usually the loudest, just like the proverbial wheel that needs the most grease." End quote. Critics had long speculated by this point that Publish America's status as a traditional publisher was illegitimate, and that they were in fact a vanity press who would publish any work, regardless of its quality. People who had read the published books went as far to say the Maryland-based company didn't even edit the titles of the works. However, these theories were unproven, and both the rejection rate and general claims of high esteem seemed substantial enough to dissuade most batting an eyelid. As such, a crack team of science fiction and fantasy authors, along with complete novices to writing, the crude remarks still fresh in their minds, set out to create a literary weapon that would make or break Publish America's declining reputation. The team would write the worst possible novel they could, send it to Publish America for publishing, and if it was accepted, it was certain that Publish America was indeed a vanity press. It would also disprove the aforementioned rejection rate. The end product of this process was Atlanta Nights. Under the direction of award-winning literary critic and fantasy sci-fi writer James MacDonald, each author in the group was instructed to write a chapter of Atlanta Nights, given only sketchy character concepts and minimal outlines. They were deliberately not told many pieces of key information, such as the chapter's location in the book, the time of year, the background of the characters, the genre, what the other participants had written, or even the overall plot. The characters which would appear in any given chapter were determined by rolling dice. The only other instruction given was to deliberately write as badly as possible. Brenda Clough, author of Chapter 39, described the process in a Goodreads review. Quote, "I am the author of Chapter 39, and I can testify that it is very, very hard to write badly. I set a number of ground rules for myself. Maximal cursing and 4-letter words. Nothing could happen and it would go nowhere. and, as dictated by the basic setup, I had no idea what any of the other authors were doing. I am sorry to report that it was impossible. Conflict and character insisted upon appearing. People kept doing things. I did manage to make Bruce an Asian American, which means that he is a white man only about 80% of the time, and black the other 15%. But alas, that was all I could accomplish. Sorry everybody, we will do worse next time. End quote. In total, 41 chapters were created for the book, each intending to break as many general writing guidelines as possible, whilst being filled with grammatical errors and common tropes. The end product was worse than anyone could have imagined. Due to the authors being left in the dark on the activity of any of the other authors, the plot is borderline nonsensical and filled with countless continuity errors. Characters die and then come back to life with no rational explanation, and one even dies again after being previously revived. Callie Archer is mentioned as being the younger sister of main character Bruce Lucent, but in every other chapter, they are a newly married couple. As alluded to by Claw, the race of the characters switches frequently, as does their gender, by deliberate choice. In one chapter, Bruce's parents are described as white, despite Bruce being black for part of Atlanta Nights. He is also a millionaire software developer at 18 years of age. At one point in the novel, the storyline previous is revealed to be a dream, and then continues for several more chapters as if nothing has happened, under McDonald's specific instruction. In terms of more specific literary content, however, the words baka and kawaii make an unexpected appearance, reminiscent of poorly written fanfictions inspired by anime, which had begun emerging on the internet at the time. This is the only logical explanation, as none of the characters have any Japanese relation. Chapters that feature no mention of having sex or talking about having sex are a rarity, most likely a reference to another Hoax work with an even more erotic slant, entitled Naked Came the Stranger. In fact, the working title of Atlanta Nights was Naked Came the Badfic in reference. However, frequent sexual references are a common trope of poor quality writing. Atlanta Nights even contains factual inaccuracies. Irene recalls of a vacation with Henry. He took me to Rome, where we stood in the light of the Eiffel Tower. Arthur Nance immediately went into medical school after graduating from high school. Penguins are vicious burrowing predators that live in the Sahara and howl at the moon, and Irene is desperate for some of their leather throughout the narrative. A subtle jab at Publish America was also hidden in the book, as the initials of the characters' names spell out Publish America is a vanity press. However, I believe the only way you can truly experience how poorly written Atlanta Nights is to listen to a passage, so here is a section of the first chapter for you to enjoy. Chapter 1. Pain. Whispering voices. Pain. 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 Need pee. New pain. What are they sticking in me? Sleep. Pain. Whispering voices. As you know, Nurse Eastman, the government spooks controlling this hospital will not permit me to give this patient the care I think he needs. Yes, doctor. The voice was breathy, sweet, so sweet, and sexy. We will therefore just monitor his signs. Serious trauma like this patient suffered requires extra care, but the rich patsies controlling the hospital will make certain I cannot try any of my new treatments on him. Yes, doctor. That voice was so sexy. Bruce didn't care about treatments, he cared about pain, and he cared about that voice, because when he heard the voice, the pain went away, just for a few seconds like. Report to me if there is any change, the man's voice said. Yes, Dr. Nance, said the sexy voice. A door closed, and Bruce heard breathing, and smelled the enticing smell of shampoo and perfume. It was Chanel No. 5. He opened his eyes. All he saw was the roundest, firmest pair of tittles he'd ever seen in his life, all enclosed in a crisp white nurse's uniform. I'm in heaven, he said. No, he tried to say, but his voice wouldn't work. His mouth was dry, and there was some terrible tube thing in his nose. And hey, what's that thing in his dick? It hurts! The tits bounced like Aunt Alice's molded jello back at home, and then moved away. Oh, she was just straightening the covers on the bed. However, the horrendous content of this novel still wasn't protruding enough for the authors. Once penmanship had completed, chapter numbers and formatting became mere instruments of further exploitability in pursuit of Publish America's destruction. Chapter 21 is missing, there are 2 chapter 12s, each by different authors. Chapters 13 and 15 are 2 non-identical chapters also by different authors, but feature the same outline. Chapters 4 and 17 are identical word for word, but perhaps bizarrest of all is chapter 34, which was written by the Bonsai story generator created by Andrew Burt, who also penned chapter 11. The computer program was given the raw manuscript of the previous chapters and then generated what it thought was the appropriate text. Due to the program's inability to perfectly replicate the writing of a human, Chapter 34 mostly consists of abnormal sentence fragments and grammatical errors which would never occur in humans. The chapter opens with the passages, "Bruce walked around anymore. Some people might ought to her practice I at her. I am so silky and braid shoulders. At 66, men with a few feet away formed their languid gazes. I know I was hungry, and impelling him lying naked. She slowly made for a man could join you. I know what I ought to take you probably should have. He wants it worriedly. About think what to wear, etc." Even the cover of Atlantanites wasn't exempt from a geographical inaccuracy. It depicts palm trees and a beach, despite the entire story being set in the titular city of Atlanta, which is hundreds of miles inland. The coast of Georgia also faces east, which contradicts what is clearly an ocean sunset pictured. Atlantanites was absolutely terrible, and if Publish America was not a vanity publisher, as the critics claimed, there was absolutely no possibility of Atlantanites being accepted. An individual described only as a brave volunteer was the one who handed in the manuscript to Publish America under their own name. It was then submitted for review to see if it had what this book publisher is looking for. It did. Dear Mr. XXX, as this is an important piece of email regarding your book, please read it completely from start to finish. I am happy to inform you that Publish America has decided to give Atlantanites the chance it deserves. An email will follow this one, with the sample contract attached for your review. The main terms of the contract are that we will pay you climbing royalties, starting at 8%. You retain the copyright, and we will begin production on the book within 365 days of the date we receive the signed contract. A symbolic $1 advance underlines that all financial risk is carried by the publisher, as we firmly believe it should be. Once the signed contract has been processed in our offices, you will be contacted by our production department regarding the next step for your book in the publishing process. Welcome to Publish America, and congratulations on what promises to be an exciting time ahead. Sincerely, Meg Phillips, Acquisitions Editor, Publish America. The Sting was a complete success. December 7th, 2004 marked one of the worst novels ever written being accepted for publishing by a so-called traditional publisher, complete with a sample contract. Burt provides an overview of the aforementioned key point in Publish America's contract. Quote, "Non-vanity publishers, Random House, etc., pay authors substantial advances, payment in advance of publication, usually measured in thousands of dollars, typically calculated as the publisher's estimate of how much the book will sell and earn the author. Vanity publishers do not pay authors significant advances. Brackets, Publish America pays $1 just so they can claim to pay in advance. Vanity presses pay at best only royalties, and usually collect sizable fees or other consideration. Publishers from which authors earn real money put their own publishing company's money at risk up front to the extent of a great many thousands of dollars, and bear the responsibility to earn it back by selling the book for the author and themselves. This is what differentiates the two types. Vanity presses do not put any of their own money at risk and thus engage in no or minimal marketing to sell the author's books. They thus do not sell many copies. Studies of data from Zilabris and Publish America suggest that average sales are under 100 copies total, and authors make little or no money and are out whatever fees or other consideration they paid." Unquote. The other authors seem to reach a similar conclusion to Burt. After reviewing the contract with legal counsel, they eventually decided not to go through with actually publishing Atlantanites under Publish America's conditions. On the 23rd of January 2005, the book was revealed to be a hoax, which prompted Publish America to withdraw their offer via email the following day. Quote, "We must withdraw our offer to publish Atlantanites. Upon further review, it appears that your work is not ready to be published. There are portions of nonsensical text in the manuscript that were caught by our editing staff, as they preview the text for editing time assessment pending your acceptance of our offer. However, Atlanta Nights was still officially published print on demand the same month, under the now famous Travis T. pseudonym, complete with several tongue-in-cheek blurbs adorning the back cover and interior. They were mostly penned by the authors themselves, hinting at the book's low quality without explicitly stating it. Examples include, "I stayed upright reading it," "You have to read this book to believe it," and "Gripping, squeezing, mashing, bashing. This book will give a man cramps and a woman a prostate. It delivers." All of the profits generated from the book's sales were donated to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America Emergency Medical Fund. It would be an understatement to say the satirical expose on Publish America caused their reputation to plummet. So, where are they now? About a month after Atlanta Nights was revealed to be a hoax, McDonald was quoted in an article stating that Kevin Yarborough, a fellow fantasy author, quote, "sent in a manuscript that consisted of the same 30 pages repeated 10 times, and had it accepted." He also noted that other hoax works may be impending, but knowledge on the existence of these is limited. In December 2005, a man named Philip Dolan took Publish America to arbitration regarding his book, which he submitted to the company for publishing out of desperation. Dolan originally became involved with the company in late 2004, enthused by his book's promised availability at, quote, "every brick-and-mortar bookstore," as well as the claim on the contract he was given that stated Publish America would make the book available at all times. While the manuscript was awaiting printing, Dolan spent $7,000 of his personal wealth towards the promotion of the book. He was later quoted as spending almost twice this amount, quote, "I'm out $13,000 for advertising a book that could not be purchased because of their breach of their contract. I'm unable to seek a new publisher to print and sell my book. Publish America will not reimburse me for my advertising expenses nor terminate the contract," unquote. The company's downfall only continued in the following years. In 2012, Publish America was hit by a class action lawsuit by a trio of authors. The main points these plaintiffs made were that the company misrepresents its services in its contracts with authors, citing the symbolic advances and unjust holding of rights. The contract received in relation to Atlanta Nights backs up these theories. The significantly low quality control and manuscript editing also garners a significant mention, of which the acceptance of Atlanta Nights is definitive proof of. The plaintiffs also mention the misrepresentation of the company's ability to advertise their writers' work and allow passage into physical bookstores, which Philip Dolan could testify to. However, one of the more unheard of complaints at the time was the misleading claims about its association with other literary bodies. According to the complaint, Publish America claimed in 2011 that, for a fee of $49, the works of contracted authors would be brought to the attention of Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling, whilst several of the company's representatives were residing in Edinburgh for a book festival, which she was also attending. This was a complete fallacy, as Publish America received a cease and desist letter from one of Rowling's spokesmen. The complaint notes several other organizations to which Publish America has erroneously charged authors to present their work, such as Parade Magazine, the Christian Booksellers Association, the US State Department, and the National Library of Scotland. All of the organizations denied any involvement with the company. Although Publish America's ads didn't claim any affiliation with the organizations, they do imply a business relationship or special access to present books. Quote, "The Publish America name and logo is a stigma to those in the media, bookstores, and libraries. The books are overpriced and poorly edited and cannot be returned, making them both undesirable and difficult to order. Strip away all the self-proclaimed traditional pretensions, and all you're left with is a company who hosts grossly expensive books online for sale and provides print-on-demand orders, it would seem, primarily to sell to their own authors," the complaint reads. In a written statement to the Frederick News Post, the company denied the claims, as well as stating it would not comment further on the case. Quote, "Plaintiffs' claims are without any basis, and we are confident they will not hold up in court. Plaintiffs' claims are directly contradicted by Publish America's contracts, websites, its performance under its contracts, and the fact that 47,000 authors have happily joined Publish America over the past 12 years, almost 15,000 of whom have also chosen Publish America as the publisher of their next book. The claims distort the facts, omit relevant information, and in some cases are just plain false. However, Publish America will not litigate these claims in the media. Accordingly, it will respond to each allegation in due course, during the litigation to the extent required by court procedure." Following this incident, Publish America's presence became further clouded. The authorsmarket.net domain, on which the original offending articles were published, appears to have been put up for sale around 2011, and was quickly snapped up by the competitive Asian market. Today, it still remains home to a self-promotional page of a dubious video-based application. In 2014, Publish America rebranded itself as America Star Books, which seems to coincide with the removal of the publishamerica.net domain, and then again into ASB Promotions in 2017. It was also at this point in time that the company announced it was no longer accepting submissions of manuscripts. Later that year, Publish America, in all its forms, was declared out of business by the Better Business Bureau. Quote, "As of October 2017, BBB has exhausted all forms of contact with the company. All phone numbers, websites, emails, and fax numbers are disconnected, and all postal mail communications are returned to sender." Unquote. However, PublishAmerica.com is still in existence, and has been since at least 2000. The legitimacy of this website is debatable, however, due to the sporadic web design, numerous affiliate links, and seeming openness for submissions, albeit with odd restrictions on Australia and New Zealand. So who really knows what happened to this bizarre publishing company? Dozens of authors and bystanders alike watched it flail helplessly for over a decade, constantly pounded with accusations, criticism, and comedic yet devastating works of literature, while simultaneously choked by its own web of lies and fraudulency.